My name is Dr. Vanessa LaPointe. I'm a registered psychologist, parenting educator, and mom to two growing boys, and this is Ask Dr. V. This week's question comes to us from Australia from a dad who is working to do the right thing for his 3-year-old daughter, whom he shares in a co-parenting kind of relationship with his daughter's mother. The question goes like this. I have a 3-year-old daughter from a previous marriage and now a 4-week-old. We've been very conscious about reconnecting and providing a safe and boundaried house. The 3-year-old, however, has started to melt down when I pick her up. The light bulb was when you were talking at your previous seminar about how the child always wants to stay at mom's house and talks about my mummy. And he thought that the child was just trying to be kind of challenging, but is now realizing that she might actually be insecure and seeking belonging. I am wondering if the meltdown at pickup is related to that. So my question is, what is the best way to handle so as to make sure my daughter feels like she belongs at our home and to minimize the anxiety generated when she stays with us 3 nights a fortnight and the afternoon of the Monday in between? This is a really excellent question, and I've actually received a lot of messages. I'm filming this during the COVID-19 pandemic, and so there's lots of parents out there wondering how to handle different situations, and you co-parents have been sending through lots of messages about how kind of challenging it is to be managing this and socially isolating, or as I like to call it, physically distancing during the midst of all of this, particularly when you're sharing children across 2 home environments where those 2 environments may not always be lined up and other kinds of things. With respect to this particular question, there's actually 2 things going on here. The first is that for a 3-year-old child, and indeed for any child who's probably under the age of about 6 or 7 and or very emotionally activated, as can happen either during situations of families becoming redefined through separation and divorce, and or during a global pandemic, it can be really hard for kids to be settled. And so when kids are emotionally activated or when they are young, what happens is that their brain can only land on one attachment figure at a time. And so the brain just has sort of one channel or one track when it comes to being aligned with and identified alongside an attachment figure. And then what happens is when you introduce another attachment figure in, either in the form of another parent or a caregiver or whoever, that brain of the child that can be only alerted to one attachment figure right now has to pick up and pivot and then come down onto the next attachment figure. And in the picking up and the pivoting, you can see sort of this gray zone of attachment play out in acting out and resistance and that kind of thing. And so that's very normal developmentally and or very normal for kids who are in a time of alarm or angst and struggling. The other piece is that sometimes in all of that, we can become, especially across 2 homes where a child is going back and forth with co-parenting, we can become very polarized. The child can become very polarized in the direction that their attachment energy is flowing. And a lot of parents mistake this and call it alienation, and it is not alienation. So be very, very careful about jumping to that conclusion. It's just a really normal byproduct of development where the brain, because of that propensity to be locked onto one attachment figure, gets locked on and then just can't disengage from that. And so it becomes really, really challenging for the child to shift over. And usually the attachment figure that the brain will become locked onto is the one that was the primary care provider to the child. So the parent that spent the most time at home engaged in primary care routines with the child, that'll be the one that they lock onto. And that's just called polarization, and it's got nothing to do with alienation. So there are a few things that you can do to support your kids through this. First of all, you want to make sure that you welcome a lot of room and space and invitation for whatever meltdowns and acting out and all of that kind of stuff are happening as the brain is doing that pivot over to the new attachment figure. That's just normal, and you want to just sort of be like the sports commentator. You're having a hard time. This is really tricky. I know that you miss mommy, those kinds of things. And so the child really feels seen and heard by you. The other thing that's really important, if your child's brain has become sort of polarized in the attachment dynamic to this parent, you want to pull that parent into the dynamic in your home. And that doesn't mean that that parent has to physically be present in your home, but has to be invited mentally to exist in your home. And so you can do this in a variety of ways. You can have a picture up on your child's bedside table of them with their other parent. You can talk about the other parent. You can tell funny stories about the other parent. You can chat about how they have, their other parents smile and laugh, and that reminds you of this funny thing that happened once with all of you guys. And so you just kind of pull the idea of the other parent into your home and really welcome an existence of their energetic presence in your home. And so those things, you want to honor the communication and the emotions and the behavior on this, and you also want to make sure that you are doing your part to be on the mental image same page as the other parent, so that your child feels a sense of cohesion in your family and doesn't have to go the way of polarizing or splitting the intensity of that attachment relationship. Stay safe and healthy out there, you guys. It's really important right now that with our children and with our co-parents and with everybody in our lives, even if it's only energetically, we are very, very connected.